Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Suzerain. Let me get my timer started and let's kick on to the only thing we have as an option here, which is an address to the nation. Lucy and I walk into my office in the Maroon Palace to make my address to the nation speech. It was unusually crowded today. Cameras, lights, and microphones were set in place and the crew was standing by ready to start filming. Are you ready, sir? I'm always ready. Good. I think the crew is ready. As soon as you take your seat, we can go live. I took my seat and rearranged my notes on the desk as a crew member powdered my face with a cotton puff. After everybody was ready, the director gave the sign to start filming. I looked directly into the camera. My fellow citizens. Let's see. Sword to election on the winds of change that was desperately sought and called for by you, the people of Sordland. I'd like to speak about the events of the past months, about a great historic effort to give the words freedom, fairness, and hope new meaning and power. I think we're going to go with the first one. A sword to election on the winds of change that was desperately sought and called for by you, the people of Sordland. Begin my term with one goal, I wouldn't say one goal. From the moment I was sworn in, I have done nothing but fight to achieve the change you demanded. However, due to circumstances beyond my control, let's see. Plans were thwarted. Alas, my vision was too grand for the narrow scope of our current assembly. The Assembly could not conceive of a Sordland in which minority voices were represented and amplified. And so they struck down my reforms with the help of Sol himself. But I will tell you this, I am not done fighting for you. Historians shall look upon this as but a minor hurdle to Sordland's path to greatness. The future lies in the democratic movement of the West. We must keep striving for a fair and transparent democracy in Sordland and abroad. Together as a country, there is no end to what we can achieve. I took a deep breath, Lucy, and shoot a fly away from my forehead. With the reform now off the table, I shall keep following through my promise to improve Sordland's education system. I'd like to thank my wife and children for standing by me. Let's go with this one. The director gave the cut signal and the cameraman stopped filming. My speech was finished. Okay, I probably could have done that last part. I just wasn't certain if it was going to be somewhat long. I legitimately do not recall doing that in my personal campaign, but that may just be due to the fact that in my personal campaign, I actually did succeed in getting my reforms through. Let's continue on. Next chapter. Revelations. Oh, that doesn't sound ominous at all. Let's see, what do we got in the news to start us off? 4 things in geopolitico. Quinal's Anti-Piracy Summit united efforts to combat rising piracy and maritime security concerns. You can pause if you want to read this. I'll hold it here for a little bit so it's a bit easier to pause. Walker wins Arcasian election, stabilizing I don't know. City amid economic stagnation. Okie dokie. Okay, so he was re-elected. Which we kind of already knew that he was the president before. Okay. Queen Beatrice demands reparations for a century-old alleged war crime. Okay, now this one we're reading. Queen of Rumburg, Beatrice Livingston, brought up the Estord incident of the 15-day war, igniting the forgotten century-old debate of Swordish war crimes. She spoke about the need for peace and change in eastern Marcopa, and that the way forward can only be walked if past atrocities are finally settled. Queen Livingston claimed that the Swordish army in 1870 had massacred ethnic Roms with plans of committing genocide. Sordland still hasn't claimed any responsibility for their past war crimes, said the Queen, and demanded reparations to be paid. Oh, shit. What's going on in Helgeland? That's not good. According to the reports... Oh, never mind, it's just riots. The riots in Helgeland had already resulted in the arrests of thousands. The number of deaths is believed to have surpassed 100. The Agnolian government has still not released a statement about the bloody conflict. The riots in Helgeland had exploded out of proportion in the aftermath of the murder of a Volgish Highlander, or Helgelander rather. The majority of the arrests and deaths belong to the Volgish community and not in the island, on the island. Governor of Helgeland claimed that the riots were being incited and supported by the Volgslandian government. Okie dokie, what do we have here? Gendarmerie police issue. A massive miscommunication between the interior and gendarmerie has resulted in a failed raid in Vesord. The Ministry of Defense and Interior have put both the blame on each other. There will be a gathering soon to solve the ongoing dispute within the security. Radical journalist killed en route to interview. Ooh, that's, Okie dokie. A devastating incident in Vesord has shaken the journalism community. A reporter from The Radical was killed while traveling to interview Robert Laman, the influential founder of the State Educators Corps and a known ally of Tarkin Sol. This event has sent shockwaves across the city and is currently under thorough investigation. The motives behind the act and its potential ramifications on press freedom remain topics of grave concern. Why would that have any impact on press freedoms? That doesn't make any sense to me, but okay. And then, yep, this is just reminding us again, outside of the news article, this is an official thing basically sent to us, or an official report given to us, about the Queen demanding reparations for the 15-day war. Okay. Departure of the president's son from home. We're sending him off to Arcasia. It was a cloudy, rainy day in Holsword. The gloomy weather echoed my own feelings. My constitutional changes had been defeated. I was back to square one. I couldn't spend the day moping, however. Frank was finally about to leave home. My son piled the last of his bags next to the door. Sergey and the assistant driver were waiting outside next to the car. Did you pack everything? Don't forget to give me a call immediately after you arrive. I will. I think I'm all packed. Monica helped him put his backpack on while Sergey started carrying the luggage to the car. I made you a sack lunch. I'll get it from the kitchen. She dashed down the hall. Frank and I turned to face each other in the doorway. So, I guess this is it. I know studying abroad wasn't your first choice, but I hope you can live with it. I will. Don't worry. Frank shifted his weight nervously. I haven't forgotten what you told me about your university years. I hope going to a new country gives me a chance to prove myself the same way you did. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone, especially not me. Frank smiled. All right, Dad. At that moment, Deanna rushed to the door. Frank, I'm going to miss you. I'll miss you too. Don't forget, you've got to give Mom and Dad an extra hard time for both of us now. Deanna nodded. Okay. Frank picked up his sister and gave her a big hug. Monica appeared in the doorway holding a paper bag. I cut the crust off your sandwich just the way you used to like it. I'm not a kid anymore, Mom. Can't a mother pretend? Oh, Frank. She embraced him with tears in her eyes. Frank looked as if he was about to cry as well. I caught her glaring at me over his shoulder. I hoped someday she would understand why I decided to send him away. Sergey approached. Sir, Frank needs to catch the next flight to Arcasia, which leaves from Holsword International in 2 hours. We will have to leave now to make it. Thank you, Sergey. Frank turned around and took one last look at me. Make me proud. Frank nodded before heading to the car. It's difficult to see them grow and leave, isn't it? It's time for him to find himself in the world. He will. We all did, after all. Being exposed to a different culture, different beliefs, it changes a man. I think it will be a liberating experience for him. It's never easy for boys to live in the shadow of their fathers, and it must be even harder when one's father is Anton Rain. A great man like you casts a very long shadow. Not everyone thinks that. Excuse my language, Mr. President, but to hell with them. You are my president now and forever. He looked at his watch. Time to go. Frank waved his hand as he entered the car. The engine started and they were on their way. Monica stood next to me as they drove away. Her eyes were teary. There he goes. It already feels different. She put her head on my shoulder. I stroked her hair supportively. She turned to me, kissed me on the cheek, and put her head on my shoulder again. With the defeat of your reforms, I hope we will be all right. We watched for a few more minutes, even after the car was no longer in sight. Okay, so situation, dispute with the interior. And dispute with the military. President's son to receive proper education. I'm not a big fan of that phrasing, but okay. President sends... Oh, well, fuck you too, radical. Vogslandian ships harass the entire Markian Sea. Recent reports from the Markian Sea show that the tensions in the region are at an all-time high. Even the deployment of the Agnolian Navy around Helgeland to contest the patrolling Vogslandian fleet, both sides collided with each other on several occasions so far. In one incident, a Vogslandian destroyer is said to have fired at an Agnolian cruiser. According to the Agnolian government, Vogsland is trying to force its hand, and that the Agnolian Navy may need to properly intervene if left with no other options. Other reports came from Sordland, which has reported 4 of their sea vessels have been blocked and harassed by the Vogslandian fleet. Okay, yep, this is our report on them harassing our ships. Vogslandian Navy ships have steered a dozen Sordish cargo ships out of their shipping lanes this week, leading to the Maritime Safety Organization to change the sea routes. The new path to United Cantana and Arcasia is twice as long, but avoids a potential contact with the Vogsland Navy. The Sordish Navy Admiral has called the Vogslandian actions reckless and a potential threat to civilian lives due to a high risk of collisions. The Admiral dispatched several frigates to protect the maritime borders. Anything else to report? Doesn't look like it. Okie dokie. Discussion on the changes to the law. Lucy and I sat in my office waiting for Peter. I was at my desk and he was on the sofa, legs crossed. Sir, I have some news for you. Mr. Hall and I have been working on several possible plans to boost the economy, as is our focus. He is currently compiling a very detailed report with suggested projects. I will make sure you have a chance to see it soon. He looked at his watch again. Looks like Mr. Vice President is late yet another time. He lowered his voice. I am slightly concerned about Peter. He seems to have his mind occupied. He's been late to almost every meeting we've had recently. I noticed it too. I need to talk to him in private sometime. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. It was Peter. He walked inside with files in both hands. Gentlemen! Welcome, Peter. Have a seat. Thank you. He placed the files on my table, took out several documents, and organized them in front of me. Here's everything, just as you asked, our plans for our next reforms. You can use your presidential decrees to enact reforms now. We have enough political capital. I also brought a list of suggested reforms from our party. What are your thoughts, Anton? I have a few ideas myself. Take a look at the documents. Let's see, what do we have? Okie dokie, so I can choose up to 3, which we already have an obvious one. Abolish the special zone of Bergia. Under the Bergia Standardization and Unity measure, the special status of Bergia is proposed to be abolished. BSUM endorses transitioning from a governor's rule to city-based mayoral elections while revoking Bergia's special zone status. The implementation of standard national laws and policies will be promoted to facilitate Bergia's full integration into national governance. Sign that. Yes. Partly just curious. So we allow private prisons, government budget increases by 1. Enact a value-added tax, increases the government budget by 2. Establish the semi-autonomous zone in Bergia. Affects economic development by -1. So yeah, no, that's definitely not a great choice in my opinion. Rural education institutes would give us a +1 to government budget. Or excuse me, that costs us 1 government budget. Fair Trade Commission costs us 1. Free prescription medicine. If the health ministry hasn't been privatized, it would cost us 1. Otherwise, it costs us 2 if it has been privatized, and I believe ours is privatized. Lower the retirement age, increases our, or it costs us 2 government budget, not great. Supreme Council of Sordish Radio and Television costs us nothing, but presumably gives us some ability to either control the press or just, let it do its thing to better protect their independence. Definitely would not complain about that. I think what we will probably do well, let's see. That one actually doesn't seem to be listed here at all. Just to see, oh no, it is. It doesn't mention any direct impacts, so presumably it doesn't really do anything. Actually, I'm curious about that amnesty one. I feel like that's one of those. Okay. I would like to do the VAT because, well, I suppose our budget is technically fine right now, and maybe we'll get some stuff that'll improve it again in the future, such as, the negotiations with Lisbia. Okay. Okay, let's see. What do we want to do? amnesty for the political prisoners. And since I can only do 3, we're going to do desolinization. Yes. Following a brief discussion, I took notes about my decisions. Approving the abolishment of the special zone could be the most major decision you've made today. No more governor of Bergia, just cities with mayors like everywhere else. Let's hope that makes the locals feel more like they're part of this country. Nobody but you could have done something like this, Anton. While the moderates of the Bluedish movement and regular citizens will likely be supportive of this, the Bluedish nationalists and the mainstream democratic freedom movement will be furious. They'll have to respect the new structure. Of course, sir. Peter took a close look at the papers I signed. Desalinization, huh? You got some balls, Anton. I knew you wouldn't stop at taking one of his portraits down. Sir, this may create a lot of frustration and anger among the conservatives. Let us not forget the fact that we are openly attacking the founder of our party. A very risky move right before the elections. The Solists are not Sordland. Of course, sir. I was not protesting the decision, but merely explaining the situation, that's all. Speaking of controversy, most of the political criminals from the Sol area are old communists and Bluedish nationalists. Granting them an amnesty will surely be quite scandalous, but it could also sit well with the Bluedish and the left. Yes, but it will anger more than a few nationalists and Solists. If we cannot make the Socialists or the Bluedish vote for us instead of their primary parties of choice, this amnesty might be damaging for us. We must show that our administration cares about them. This is how we'll extend a peace branch. That's a valid strategy, sir. Peter and Lucian leaned in to see my notes more clearly. Well, we both respect your decisions, Anton, but now that everything's settled, we should get to work. We'll catch up soon. Lucian looked at his watch. We actually have 6 more minutes, but very well, let's call it here. Thank you both. Okay, let's see. Unity with Bergia. This week, the approval of President Rain Minister Leilas Graf's plan to abolish the special zone has become a reality. The decision to abolish the special zone of Bergia and align it with the standard regional structure is a significant step towards promoting unity and achieve the dream of Tarkan Sol and our great nation. The move to bring Bergia under the direct jurisdiction of the Ministry of Interior will ensure a consistent administrative framework throughout Sordland. We congratulate the previous governors for their service in fighting terrorism in Bergia, and finally bringing it to the state of today where it can join Sordland as an equal part. The abolishment of the governor position signals a fresh start for the region, allowing for a renewed focus on local governance and the democratic voice of the residents. The upcoming local elections will provide an opportunity for the people of Bergia to exercise their rights to choose their own mayors and municipal representatives, further strengthening the bond between the government and its citizens. And then, of course, desolinization could be the gravest mistake of Rain's presidency. What is President Rain thinking? Sordland would be nothing without Colonel Tarkan Sol. The man led our country to unity following years of bloodshed, and now Rain is rewarding him by institutionalizing a process of desolinization that would see our beloved former leader removed from schools, buildings, and city squares. Even those who disliked Sol's policies would agree that our history is worth remembering. With his unfair decree, Rain is effectively attempting to censor that history, and he himself will be remembered unkindly for it. Well, no, you can still talk about him in museums and shit, but this is like Russia having schools named after Stalin. Special zone abolished, yada yada yada. Here we go. Political prisoners to receive amnesty. Some of Sordland's former top intellectuals and academics may be about to have their honor restored as Anton Rain prepares to liberate thousands of political prisoners from Antel Rock. The president has issued a blanket pardon for those activists and thought leaders who were prosecuted and jailed under the Sol administration. These prisoners were forgotten for years. Our president's act of compassion surely will not be. Let's see. Okay, Radical isn't exactly happy with my handling of the Bergia special zone. Apparently, dissolving the special zone is just an illusion of progress. Okay. I'm inclined to disagree with that, especially considering that they'd actually have a lot more, it sounds like, local control now compared to before. It sounds like before they didn't even have mayoral elections in Bergia with the special zone. Now they do. Now they actually have local control. The Bluedish people can vote for Bluedish representatives to lead them in their towns and cities and villages. Like, I struggle to see how you can write this in a bad way, personally. I really do. But hey, apparently they can. Desolinization, finally. Can it be? Has Anton Rain really dared to begin dismantling the cult of personality around his still idolized predecessor, Colonel Tarkin Sol? Though the so-called father of our country made millions miserable under his regime, his portrait still hangs in schools and government buildings, and statues of him exist in nearly every city in Sordland. That ends now, as Rain has ordered a process of desolinization that will see the former president's likeness scrubbed from public existence. We can't wait until we never have to see that man's face again. And what's this? Circling over Stalport. Patricio Alvarez, the Prime Minister of Lisbia, on his scheduled visit to the Republic of Agnolia to meet Prime Minister Van Horten, has failed to get off the plane when it landed on the Stalport International Airport. It is believed that he has been too drunk to get off the plane. The assembled dignitaries waited at the airplane at the scheduled hour, but Alvarez's plane did not land. Airport officials reported that it was circling over Stalport. After circling for 2 hours, the plane landed, but Alvarez did not come out. Lisbian officials informed Van Horten that Alvarez was unwell and that the foreign minister would join the meeting instead. And by that they mean yes, he was too drunk. Our official report regarding the abolishment of the special zone of Bergia. Here we go. Read the report. State-of-the-art military equipment and tanks enter inventory. Wonderful. Sordland's Minister of Defense, General Isof Lancia, is reporting that the efforts to modernize the army is complete. According to his report, our soldiers' equipment has been upgraded with the newest Morna Industrial Mi-20 submachine guns, the Strong Arm 55 or S-55 assault rifles, BP-56 or the Bernard semi-automatic pistol, 1956, and Walter air-cooled 303 Arcasia machine guns. Furthermore, our H3 Hull Sword heavy tanks have been upgraded to its newest model H4 Hull Sword heavy tanks. Why are we still using heavy tanks in the 50s? I say that. It's the 50s. You still would have had heavy tanks, technically speaking. But maybe we should be working on trying to get what would become main battle tanks in the future. Start working on those. Focus on medium tank, especially because I think we'd be better off fielding more medium tanks than we would be a small handful of heavy tanks. Because I guarantee you, we do not have a lot of these heavy tanks. Guarantee you of that. With 25 to 185 millimeters of armor, I'm trying to think of a 50s tank. Would 185 millimeters of armor really be a ton of armor? And I'm kind of struggling to think of a tank that has that much armor personally off the top of my head. Okay, yeah, whatever. And a more powerful engine. Its armaments have also received substantial upgrades in the form of new 88mm L43 main guns, or of a new 88mm L43 main gun and a 12.7mm heavy machine gun mounted on top of the turret. Sorry, I'm trying to think. The use of L43 makes me think this is supposed to be the not Germany cannon. Okay. Did we buy knockoff Tiger 2s? I think we bought knockoff Tiger 2s. It really feels like it. Okay. But hey, at least we put a 50 cal on them. If you play War Thunder, that's my biggest complaint about the Germans. They don't put 50 cals on their stuff. The 7.62s and whatnot, just they don't cut it. When it comes to dealing with lightly armored vehicles. Need a 50 cal, bare minimum. Bare minimum. Anything smaller, not worth having. Minimum of a 12.7. If you can do a 14.5 with a decent ammo capacity, that'll work as well, but minimum of a 12.7 in my opinion. That's just the way I am. One of the reasons why I really like the American tanks in the game, because they use them religiously. Most other countries don't use 50 cals. Soviets are about the only other ones that really do. And I guess technically the Chinese, I think, do as well to an extent on some of theirs. But nonetheless. So, okay, yep, we have upgraded our stuff. And again, I really feel like it's some knockoff Tiger 2s that we bought, but okay. I don't think the Tiger 2 is a great tank to be using in the 50s, but hey, if that's what we're going to do, we're going to do it. Lenkrug commerce at an all-time high. Wonderful. Wonderful. So I got 13 minutes left. I think we have time for this. It shouldn't take that long, but we'll be ending the part after this event, I imagine. So, trade talks with the Prime Minister of Lisbia. The maroon train slowly started to move. This train had been in service for many years. It had 9 locomotives with special quarters and an office. As the name implied, it was painted bright maroon. Among camera flashes and cheers, we departed from the Hulsord Central train station. Our destination was Perla, the capital of Lisbia. The historic route we were using was also called the Southern Express. We passed through the Lisbian mountain range to the lowlands with a short stop at the beautiful Suzerain Nueva, where Lisbian security forces joined us. Looking outside the window, the difference in wealth between Valgen and Suzerain Nueva was extraordinary. I heard a knock on the door to my office on the train, and Simon entered. "Mr. President?" "Simon, have a seat." He sat down on a chair in front of my desk. "I wanted to have a quick chat about Prime Minister Alvarez and give you a heads up. There have been some rumors about his demeanor in public appearances." "Go on." "He is known to have met with other state leaders while intoxicated on various occasions. Some even call him an alcoholic." "Is this something that could affect this trade deal?" "Honestly, I don't know." He handed me a newspaper. The headline was "Circling over Slawport." Okay, we already read that. "This happened just yesterday. Apparently, he was so drunk that he couldn't get off the plane on a diplomatic visit. After this incident, some say he is unfit to serve, but I don't believe that at all." "Why is that?" "Although his presidency is riddled with these kinds of incidents, I also heard that he is a shrewd man." "Thanks for giving me a heads up. I am sure we will be fine, Mr. President. We are almost at Perla. I will return to my cabin now." "Very well." A few minutes later, with a long whistle, our train came to a stop. I waved to the crowd from the window. The crowds of reporters that flocked over were pushed away by the Lisbian security guards. We made our way to our cars, and the convoy began its short trip to the Yellow House. The Yellow House was situated at the very center of Perla, in the middle of a circular park that was off limits to regular citizens. The park was full of roses in small patches. On small patches. The convoy came to a stop and made my way to the entrance. The assistants directed me to a room to wait for Prime Minister Alvarez. I sat in the exquisite room and looked up at the golden chandeliers. After 10 minutes, there was still no sign of Prime Minister Alvarez. It was almost time for our meeting. My chair started to feel uncomfortable. I stood up and walked around to look at the various items in the room. A beautiful golden teapot piqued my interest. Let's inspect it. While I was touching it, the handle broke off. I looked around. Thankfully, no one was in the room. Let's leave the broken handle next to the teapot. The door opened and Patricio Alvarez entered. Although I knew that he was one of the youngest state leaders in the world, I was still surprised by how boyish he looked. At his age, he was leading one of the strongest countries in Eastern Maricopa. He was holding his head like he had a headache, and he was stumbling. Upon seeing me, he immediately composed himself. We shook hands. He gestured towards the two couches, and we sat face to face. President Rain, welcome to Perla. Good to have you here. I hear a lot about your successes. And I hear a lot about your successes as well, Mr. Alvarez. I try, Mr. Rain. I smelled the strong odor of alcohol. Well, let's not say anything. Let's begin then. So, you are here for the trade deal. What was it about again? Can you remind me? We want to provide Sordish coal in return for Lispian capital. Ah, yes, right. Sorry, I have just been very busy lately. You know, being a president makes you pretty busy, so I don't have any issues with this deal. I think it will contribute nicely to the relationship between Lispia and Sordland. I will sign the executive order. I do, however, believe we can do much more than just trade. We, by we I mean ATO, would like to see Sordland in our sphere. What do you think, Mr. Rain? Why would you do that for Sordland? What's in it for you? Prosperity in Eastern Maricopa, remedying an old alliances, and most importantly, forming a defensive pact against United Cantana. He clenched his fist and slammed it on the coffee table. Those damn communists. We need to stop them before it's too late. Vogsland, those barbarians are preparing to invade Helgeland on false accusations. If Agnolia is first, Sordland will be next. I will be frank, Eastern Maricopa's only way to survive is through ATO. And we need the support of one of the largest players in Eastern Maricopa, Sordland. The beautiful country of Sordland is the key to all of this. We need you, Mr. Rain. We need Sordland. Are you with us? Will you defend our continent against the blight of communism? I can't decide without knowing what's in it for me. I see that you possess the mind of a man who understands business. I offer you an alliance. Together we will shield the continent against Malyanev's evil. Not to mention that you will have Arcasia's full backing, the most powerful ally you can have in this era. Oh, well, probably should have just led with that, buddy. I accept. Sordland will be allied to Lispia. Perfect. Brilliant. You don't know how valuable you are, Mr. Rain. You just saved your country from its demise. I will personally talk to Mr. Walker to let him know of this achievement. We shook hands and he went in for a hug. I could smell the alcohol on his breath. He looked at the clock. I'm afraid I have to leave now to attend to other matters. Thank you for your visit. On his way to the door, he suddenly turned around. Before I forget, you owe me a teapot. He smiled and left the room. I returned to Hall Sword with good news. So, okay, we got a couple things here. So, alliance with Lispia and trade with Lispia, both very good things for us. Situation, coal trade with Lispia, free trade zone with Lispia, trade tariffs by Vogsland. Can't say we're too surprised by that one though, can we? Sordland Lispia Pact. Sordish government, I think I might have mentioned this before. I don't think this game was made necessarily by a native English speaker. It is missing sometimes it's missing words. Or it uses incorrect words. Like, remember how before it said, it referred to some of the people on Vogsland as being, or not on Vogsland, on Helgeland as being in Helgeland. But the way it's phrased, referring to them as people on Helgeland would make more sense. There are ways you could phrase it to where saying in Helgeland works. But the way it was phrased, it makes more sense to say on Helgeland. Here it's missing, the word the in front of Swordish government. It would make so much more sense reading for it to say the Swordish government, not Swordish government. Moving on, has officially signed a new economic deal and a military pact with Lisbia, which brings the two economies closer through an economic partnership agreement as well as their militaries with a new military alliance. The Sordland-Lisbia alliance was made official by President Rain and Prime Minister Alvarez in Parla yesterday. The deal is tailored to benefit both economies with big benefits to Swordish and Lisbian businesses. It includes a strong commitment from Lisbia to support Sordland with Lisbian capital. It will also bring the militaries of both countries closer together. Through joint military training and intelligence sharing, according to the pact, both countries will join each other in any defensive wars. The signing marks a new period of close relations between Sordland and Lisbia, which will see two like-minded democracies work together as allies. Oops, wrong button. This is the one I wanted to click. CSP cautions against Sordland-Lisbia strategic alliance. United Cantana, under the auspices of the CSP, has communicated strong reservations concerning the formalized alliance between Sordland and Lisbia. This cooperative agreement, ostensibly for bolstering mutual defense and advancing economic interest, extends the ATO's influence in Eastern Markopa. Chairman Leon Malyanev, I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name, holy crap, representing the CSP's stance, warns of the potential for this strategic alliance to disrupt the delicate equilibrium of power in the region. This reservation is further accentuated against the backdrop of the recently concluded Arcasian-Lisbia agreement, permitting Arcasian military establishments in Lisbia. This military expansion has sparked concerns about escalating tensions in the region, making the recent Sordland-Lisbia alliance an area of heightened focus for the CSP. Okay, I have a little under 3 minutes left on my clock, so we're going to go ahead and end this part here, and I will see you all next time, where we will start off with a private meeting with Peter. But until then, goodbye and farewell.